Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to my home studio, and welcome to a final video just looking back at the impromptu short notice guitar design competition that we held over the lead up to Christmas. We gave away a guitar, we gave away a whole bunch of Crimson Guitars tools and sundries, oils and finishes, etc. It was great fun. We decided we needed to try and lighten the mood in any way we could. It's been an interesting year. Burn it. Haha, yay! And we're going to do this every year. Now, the winner of the competition, I'm going to be building that guitar sometime over this coming year, and we will release a bunch of videos in the lead up to Christmas, and somebody will be entering into a guitar design competition and winning that guitar, among other things, I assume, on Christmas Day next year. But we thought it would be interesting, and a huge percentage of the people who submitted designs asked for my opinion on their designs, and we decided to put together a quick video. I'm assuming you're looking at the timeline and going, that's quick. I'm going to look at 100 of the designs submitted. This is relatively random. I've had nothing to do with picking them. It was a case of, hey, we've had several hundred designs, we can do 100, and we threw dartboards at a wall, metaphorically speaking. But anyway, let me go straight in. I'm going to be quick, I'm going to be brutal and honest and complimentary, all at the same time. I like your hat. Let's go. The first guitar that we have in our list here is one of many, many renders, and to do a 3D render with curves, it blows my mind. I'm old school and happy with paper. But this guitar, or should I say bass, is quite interesting. We've got a 5-string bass. The headstock is probably a little bit big in comparison to the rest of the guitar, and throughout this entire thing you will see, I'm sure, that headstocks are a nightmare to do. They are not easy. But this is a shark bass. There's a production shark bass, isn't there? Google it. It's quite attractive. I've got no issues with this whatsoever. You've got P-bass and reverse P-bass pickups, so in the bass it's a little bit treblier on the bass side. So the bridge pickup has got a treblier. I'm going to just run with that, and the treble side is bassilier. Anyway, it's interesting. I think that the upper horn is the only bit that sort of, actually the horns kind of mess with the whole design, the shark aspect of it, but you know, it's an interesting instrument and could be quite fun to make. Now this is an interesting one. We've got essentially a 335 but with a 6-in-line headstock. You could take a standard kit really and make one of these. The F-holes are pretty damn cool, actually. Yeah, the other thing about this is that it's plywood just with a tung oil finish, so whoever designed this understands that traditional 335s and 350s, etc., they are just made with a multi-laminate ply of veneer, and it works. Yeah, it works. It creates an iconic instrument that sounds great and is stable. Again, it's fairly derivative in shape, but the point of this competition wasn't necessarily to come up with a crazy shape. It was to come up with different points of view and different specifics and different details that are modern and interesting. And this is interesting. I like the F-holes, Rickenbacker-ish, but cool. We have a lightsaber guitar. Now, initially when I saw this, I thought, oh, maybe we're going to have an issue with neck heaviness, but actually it's a fairly chunky body. And do not underestimate how much weight a headless system and pickups, etc., add to it. I like the removable leg. Yes, it's a removable leg rest. I think that's very cool. And that looks like a Sustainiac as well. So we've got a Sustainiac pickup and a standard humbucker. The switches are all built in. And yes, the neck is acrylic on this one. Now, I built a 4-string bass for Goldfrapp's bass player Charlie Jones, among other things. He plays all sorts of stuff, and it had an acrylic neck, and the only way we could make it playable was to have very, very light gauge strings on it. I would do things differently nowadays. Well, acrylic necks are possible. If you want a thin, comfortable, modern feeling acrylic neck, it's much more difficult without relying on carbon fiber stiffening rods or even stainless steel stiffening rods, which would look better if they were nice and polished. But I think something could be done there. And yeah, a lightsaber guitar is pretty cool, to be frank. This is a Santana, PRS Santana double cutty kind of a thing in shape, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. We've got little cat paw prints running around the body, and the on the top, and also around the circumference, which is very interesting, and a beautiful sort of northern, oh, there we go, Borealis hollow body. There we go. So it's hollow under there as well, and it's got a beautiful inlay scene, mountains and walls, etc. Set into it. The headstocks are hard. That looks, basically that's a straight string pull headstock, and they always look a little bit pointy and shapeless, because if you want straight string pull and you want asymmetrical headstock as well, that's what you get, and there's just not much that you can do about it, unless you customize the tuners. So you could potentially make much longer tuning keys, so you can have a flared out headstock where the posts are where they're supposed to be, but the tuning keys are twice as long, and then you can play with whatever you want. We should start offering that, shouldn't we? Or somebody should start offering that. I said we as if I make hardware. Stay away from making hardware. The switch on the upper bout here is it's off center. I think it's okay. I think that I'm saying quite a lot. This is my thinking noise. I'm sorry. I'm doing all of this on the fly. Now, this is another fairly standard LP type instrument, albeit with a customized lower bout to start things off, but it looks like the lower bout has been cut out, and then a correspondingly sized circle has been routed into the upper bout, and you've got a V in at the end. And it's something that has been happening of late over the last decade or so. People are taking interesting carves through your flame maple top, or insert material of choice top, and revealing the body timber. And this is a very, very interesting way of doing things, and comes up with some stunning things. The inlay, the line work, I'm going to assume that would be painted on, or a transfer or something like that, is quite attractive. Not entirely sure what it is supposed to represent, but it's pretty. It would have been nice to have seen that transfer over onto the inlay on the neck. Now, the one other thing is, obviously we've got an HSS construction here, and the single coils are angled such as to give more bass on the lower strings and more treble on the high, or the amount of treble that one would expect. The only issue that one has with that is you've had to cut away a couple of frets at the end. It looks a little bit strange, but it works with the V at the end, and yeah, it's a fairly standard looking on the outset guitar that has quite a lot going on in the end, and I quite like it. Okay, next up, again, we've got something interesting going on with the headstock. I have seen this before, where after your 6 and 9 tuners are end, something comes up, and it's an interesting thing. I think headstocks are just our biggest design issue. There is nothing that hasn't been done within the confines of what we have, tuners and material, as far as I can tell. The horns, I actually really like the lower horn. I think that works very, very well. The upper horn is a little bit big in this, and we're going to go and in my mind, the best way to design a guitar is to start with a template or a plan or something of an existing model that you know and love and like the feel of, etc. You will see, I'm sure, some of these guitars where the area behind the bridge is just far too long. And even, I have designed hundreds of guitars, I've drawn hundreds or thousands of guitars, and if I am starting just with a piece of paper, I often will make that mistake. It'll be too long one way, too short another, and you don't really know. But once you start with bridge, pickup, scale length, neck size from existing models, assuming you're going to start with say a Les Paul scale or something like that, then you work from that and then draw based on that. Now, this is a Strat-ish, slightly offset, carved top. The only thing that I don't really like the look of in principle here is the scratch plate kind of thing. It's just a little bit, it looks like one of those giant single-celled organisms that you get that just is just there. But other than that, I think it's a really interesting guitar. Yeah. So we have reversed a Jackson and chopped off 2 pointy bits. I like. It's amazing how a couple of very, very simple changes like that will drastically adjust what an instrument looks like to you. Now, the other thing is you've got rectangular inlays up and down the neck, and I have, in my entire career, I don't think I've ever personally built a guitar with rectangular inlays like that all the way down the neck. I've done a few at the 12th, and I really like the look. One of my first guitars was a small-bodied Gibson LOO or treble O or something. It's something, I always get confused between that and the Martin sizes. And that had a mother-of-toilet seat, sort of plasticky, fake mother-of-pearl fretboard with ebony inlays. I absolutely loved that instrument. Anyway, I need to get on and do another one, and I like the black and white workings out of that. Now, this wee sort of Music Man-ish, obviously with the 4-in-2 headstock. Just public information. Last time we were talking about designs, I said that the 4-in-2 was copywritten or in some way legally protected by Ernie Ball. That is true. However, 2-in-4, i.e. 2 on the bass and 4 on the treble, is apparently not. So you can get away with doing that. And if you are going to do this and you don't want to buy 2 whole sets of tuners, or even however the maths works out, you can buy Spertzl tuners, locking or non-locking. They are incredibly well designed. Lightweight aluminium for one, and that is useful in some points. But you can take the entire Spertzl tuning key apart into its components, flip the internal bar around. What would you call that? The shank of the tuning key? Let me know in the comments. But you can turn the whole thing around and then turn a left-handed tuner into a right and vice versa. So one set will get you a 4-in-2, a 3-in-2, etc. You can do it. Anyway, I like how we've got a mahogany or a sapele central section and then quilted maple on the outer, and it looks like 2 guitars stuffed together. I think that there could be a little bit of tidying up to do with the shape, but it works very well. The upper horn could be a little bit bigger. I'm not sure what I'm going to assume that we've got sound holes, the tick marks, the Nike swooshes reversed, etc. That could look very, very cool. I do not like the off-center joint, but I'm assuming that's just in the rendering software. and the through body ferrules are sort of in the wrong place. But again, these are niceties and details. As a general concept, this is a lovely guitar, not least for the fact that it's got a P90 in the neck. I love a good P90, I do. Now, this is an interesting one. Obviously, the neck is not to scale, and that's absolutely fine. We've got Fishman fluences, 7-string headless system. I like the shattered holes cut through the whole body. That's pretty cool. We've got a specification of Bolivian hardwood with the Latin name. What's it? Myricrodruon urondueva. Yeah. I doubt I'd be able to find that locally. But anyway, interesting. And we have what looks like a multi-scale setup on the bridge, but sort of standard scale on the neck. So one of those two things would need to be changed. But it's interesting. We are going to see, I'm sure, a lot of headless instruments in this. It seems to be, well, much more common than than I would have ever thought. It's something that everybody wants. So watch this space. The back as well, bolt-on neck, etc. Oh yeah, this is the one with an inlaid copper top, isn't it? So the design, the shape is a little bit blocky, I suppose, is a way to say that. But it's interesting. You've got kind of like those Fender Acoustic something tellies where you've got a body and then an inlaid spruce top. I can't remember what the hell they decided to call it. I remember hating the name when I first saw it, and it's out of my brain now. It's kind of like that, but with the top being inlaid copper with sound holes and a trem, etc. I think it's an interesting concept and one that I would like to play with. Copper, I've done a number of copper-topped guitars in the past, and gluing it to a body is an issue. Riveting it is pretty much the only option to guarantee it's never going to come off unless you're using a particularly sticky epoxy, I suppose. But even that, epoxy, if it's knocked, can cause some trouble. Whoa, okay, so now this one. Bigsby, those are Seymour Duncan, crikey. Okay, listen guys. I know I'm coming across as a bit of an idiot now. I know exactly what those are, and so do you. They're those fantastic pickups that Seymour Duncan have that make multitudinous sounds, and it's great. I have numerical dyslexia, so numbers flip in my brain. And one of the other symptoms of this, it's also called dyscalculia, I think. And it's getting better now that I'm running businesses and have been doing for so long, and accounts and all that jazz. But one of the other symptoms is that even if I've met you, your face, I might know your face, but I will never remember your name. I have employees who've worked for me for 6 months or so, and I still have to go, Bernard? I don't have anybody called Bernard working for me. So that's a thing. And then that also goes to brands of, or names of particular products. So this particular pickup, I know it. I know it well. I've used it before. I can't remember the damn brand, so you're going to have to tell me in the comments below. We've got the Bigsby trem. I like it. Obviously, you've got enough controls here to support every single option that these pickups grant one. The shape is the elephant in the room. I think that, in principle, I have no issue with a faceted, blocky kind of a feel. It's fairly modern, fairly cyberpunky-ish. What I don't particularly like is the fact that from where I'm sitting, the upper and lower bouts are roughly the same, if not a little bit wider than the lower. So the upper and lower horns are wider than the lower bout. And that is an issue for me. It just doesn't have the flow that a guitar should have. And I'm not sure whether this is me being too traditional or not, but it's how I feel. Okay, this next one, this, I'm going to be trite and say this is Marmite. Or is that even the case? The first time I saw this guitar, I utterly hated it. Period. I mean, it's the curves are gorgeous. The curves are well done. The internal guitar, that is the top, is there's no proportions out of place. The headstock is amazing, but I hated it because I think you've got a thinner portion on the upper and lower horns, and then it thickens out again, and it just looks amoeba-y again. And then I looked at it again when I was going through on my second pass. I was like, oh, that's all right, actually. And then the third pass, I'm like, I think that should be in my top 10. And now I'm looking at it again, and gosh darn it if I don't absolutely love this guitar. The inlays are cool. The headstock is incredible. I mean, it helps. It does help that it's a nice render, but that is not really the thing. The thing is the shapes and the curves and everything that's going on. There's not too much in here, but there's a hell of a lot. The inlays are just... Oh, I love this guitar. I love this guitar. I think that that is actually stunning. Oh, this is cool. So what have we got? A guitar for every achievement. So this is the rear view of the only person who decided to design a guitar based on watches and clocks, etc., which is my well-known weakness. And we've got essentially an entire automatic watch movement in here, a whole going train, etc. It's really cool. Humbucker. I'm not sure why the humbucker is coming through the back, but it is. It's a, you know, the concept is awesome. The only problem I have, and this is the reason why I haven't ever built a steampunk guitar. Just putting something cool in because it's cool, and I'm the first one to say that a nice watch or clock movement is a cool thing. It blows my mind every time I look at them. But it has to have a purpose. It has to serve. It has to be there for a reason, and that is the only issue. Now, the issue I have with this, beyond the fact that the actual movement there is just, it's not required, is that it crosses over where the bridge is, and there's no way for the bridge. There's just no support there. I suppose we could do a flying buttress or something like that and have the bridge going on, and then maybe design in some sort of an electroacoustic banjo-y type drum, potentially. But yeah, interesting idea. Traditional Les Paul-ish with a difference. I need to build a watch-inspired guitar, and I need to figure out how to do it, and I can't for the life of me. I've been thinking about it for years. I don't know. Let me know what you would do with a watch-inspired guitar or bass. Another one where the headstock looks a little bit long, but that's fine. These fingernail inlays, I like having those go from one side to the other. That works very well. I do like the lower bout. I do like the shape. I do like the cutaway, but I don't particularly think it works where it currently is. I think either the lower edge of that needs to be closer to the center line, giving it a little bit more forward momentum, and the same with the high point up on the upper bout there, or the upper bout needs to be both narrower and much longer to give it the feel. You've got a symmetrical, it looks to me, rear end, which is not a bad thing, I suppose. Don't quote me out of context. It needs a little bit of something. It's interesting, but the lower horn actually could be it could be something else. Onto the octopus. This actually made my top 10 because it just amused me and enthralled me so much. It's the sort of thing that if I fancied another 90-hour build complication sort of a thing, hey, let's just carve a frickin' octopus and make it into a guitar, and I'm going to spend 3 months doing it, and I'm going to go into this supreme detail of all the warts and suckers and all of that jazz. I could see myself doing it. Hey, we've got Fishman Fluences. Aha, Fishman Fluence, obviously. So I saw so many people putting fluences into their designs in this competition. Starfish tone knobs. It works as an instrument. It's just not... The whole point of this competition was to look for design elements or designs in their entirety, perhaps, that have a modern, young, cool aesthetic and feel. And this is just cool and funky and off the wall, but it's not what we were looking for in the end. But yeah, it could be fun. You've got a couple of things going on with this build. One, the headstock. The headstock looks very, very cool, but if you, in haste, go up to your E or your A chord, that headstock is going to stab the hell out of this part of your hand, and you will bleed and cry and get sepsis and die, and it would just be a total waste. So that needs to be addressed a little bit. I don't have an issue with the shape, it's just, yeah, slightly problematic. And again, it's a two-part construction of the headstock, which I like. It's thinking outside of the box. The shape requires... It's not quite to scale. The lower bout is attractive on its own. It just needs to be sized up, and the upper sections need to be made a little bit smaller, and etc. That's not the issue. What we've got that is interesting is the red going to black inlays on the neck, and the fact that we've got the neck bolted in sideways into the body. 3 good solid Allen key bolts recessed in, so you don't have to have a particularly thick body at all, in fact, for this to work. And this is something that I've thought about over the years, and I've got no real issues with it. I would say you would need some sort of a locating pin at the end of the neck to stop it from moving, to just give it some physical strength against the strings. But it works. It works. This new guitar, again, we've got Fishman Fluences. Well, this has not been sponsored by them in any way. I don't like the headstock. I don't like the headstock at all. I think that I've got no problem with cutting away sections of headstocks, but it needs to be done in order to make it more attractive. I've often thought about having a multi-level headstock where your bass strings are higher and the treble strings are lower at different break angles, basically, to see what that would do with the tension, maybe even an adjustable one. But this is just there for the sake of being there, and that's not a good enough reason, in my opinion, really. Now, it's rendered with this fantastic quilting, and it's just mind-blowing. I could see this on a wall I could see ESP making this quite happily and charging you 20 grand for it or whatever they do. And yeah, it's fine. Shallow bridge, if I'm not mistaken. Could be. It's interesting. That little twirl up at the back, that would be an absolute nightmare to sand. But that being said, we have another cyberpunk-ish guitar. Wasn't that disappointing? Yeah. No, the game. The game was disappointing. Or at least, yeah, I'm waiting for an update. Anyway, okay, let's not go. This is not a gaming channel. I like the construction. I like the way it splits up into two. It has a very interesting thing, and I think that it could be pretty cool. You could use this as a platform for interchangeable pickups in a rapid, quick format. You've got... this would work very well with fluences, of course. I've got nothing wrong with this one in principle. I think put together with some interesting woods or aluminium or perspex, it would be great. The first thing that slaps you in the face is the crimson inlay down the fretboard. I don't think that I would ever inlay something so self-serving as my own logo that big onto somebody else's guitar. it's a bit crass, in my opinion. That being said, using a Union Jack, Union flag, come on, I'm tired now. That's interesting. I did it on a guitar right very, very, very early on. I don't think there's any photographic evidence of that, and it was quite cool. And yeah, I'm very, very happy and proud of where I live, and I think that would be quite cool to work in. I don't particularly like the upside downness of this guitar. Again, it serves no purpose. There is a reason why we have a large upper bout or a long upper horn, and that is to give your strap button somewhere to go that stops neck dive. Pushing one further back towards the body just means you're going to have to put the strap button somewhere else, and from an aesthetic point of view, there's no point to it. I do... Okay. I've been looking at the same way. I really like that shape, the bottom, the back of it. That's a really pretty curve, etc. And I've just realized why I like it, and that is because it is the shape of my logo, the Crimson Guitars logo, and the Crimson Guitars logo is the shape of, it's the back of, rewind, repeat, words in head. Think about it, Ben. The logo is an outline taken off my personal favorite guitar that I've ever owned or ever made, and that is my 12-hour build. Link in the description. Go and check that out. It's a fantastic guitar in my own opinion. So there we go. Okay. I get it now. This is based, see what I did there? This is based on playing with the idea of taking graffiti and turning it into a guitar. In fact, the model is the Graffitari, anyway. And it works. And again, I don't particularly like the headstock, but I think that's par for the course on most of these guitars. Headstocks are a nightmare to do. I love the way that you've got the central section that goes underneath things, and it follows itself through, and it's just layer upon layer upon layer of graffiti-inspired levels of guitar. I love it. Dust magnet, maybe, but then again, you're talking to the guy that made the 90-hour build. Bob, what do we call the great guitar build-off guitar that I designed and that I entered into the competition? So I've got no problem with dust magnets. Get a compressor and blow it out. I like this. I think it's very attractive. Yeah, it would lend itself quite well to being a multi-scale instrument, actually, or headless even. Okay, so next up we have, this is somebody who's taken a standard Les Paul set of plans and adjusted them slightly. They've stayed within the lines to a certain extent. The lower bout is a little bit fatter, more acoustic-ish, and the headstock is quite interesting. But what the main idea of this was to essentially create a top out of, I suppose, end-grain chopping board style, out of multiple pieces of different pieces of, how many times can I say the word pieces? Exotic timbers in a fish scale or dragon scale kind of a pattern, embedded in epoxy resin there. I think that's a relatively interesting. It's interesting. I like the inlay. That's ribbon. I'm not sure if that is to do with the cancer, the pink ribbon thing, but actually that's not a bad idea to do at some point. Cancer awareness, etc. Okay, moving on to the next one. Now, yay! Okay, so what we have here is a very, very, very traditional multi-scale headless instrument. How the world has changed since I started building guitars, eh? Wow. I like it. Bolt on. attractive neck. It looks like it's been rendered with a neck that is made out of something burly. I would never use burl timber for a neck. It is structurally unsound unless it has been chucked in cactus juice in a vacuum or something like that. I just wouldn't even consider it. The one thing you need in a guitar above all else is a stable neck. Fan fret, I particularly love the inlays, the squared inlays, and then that thing, the shape of the 12th fret, I absolutely love it. This is an instrument that should be made, could be made, hell, it's 8 string as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's beautiful. There we go. It's very much like, I suppose, good design. I've heard, and I can't remember who I've heard this from. Good design is what you get when you've taken everything away that you can, and then you put back the last thing, and that's it. And we're going to get to a point where a guitar is basically that shape to a certain extent. Okay, now here we go. Another fan fret, headless instrument. I like the upperbout. I like the fact that we've got that multi-layer, multi-level thing going on again. We've carved away, so you've got a relatively traditional double cut type shape on top, and then the body actually continues right up to the 10th fret or so. It's gorgeous. The upper and lower bouts look like they've been just, upper and lower horns appear to have just been, they're the same and they work very well. A lot of the time in guitar design, you will have one of those two that looks really good and then the other bears no relation to it. And in this case, your headstock has a very similar sort of feel and shape. And I think this is a very, very good guitar. And again, it deserves to be made. I can't find any fault with it. No faults at all. Okay, so next up we have, now this looks like somebody's tried to go for a headless instrument but made one with a really big head instead. So yeah, the headstock's a little bit too long, but again, we're talking about, it's such a difficult thing to do. Bolt on, the neck joint looks, from the back, the neck joint looks a little bit small, but quite frankly, you don't need huge amounts of space in all honesty. I think this is it's a perfectly serviceable guitar. It looks very similar. The treble half of the body looks very similar to an elm-bodied guitar that I made a long time ago. Wow, I can't remember. But yeah, I've got nothing really wrong with this apart from just some scaling issues, to be honest. I think that would work very well. Looks comfortable, looks good. Headless again, traditional bass kind of a shape. That upper horn is far too close to the body for what it is. Rewind. It's a little phallic. Not necessarily a bad thing, it depends what you're into, but yeah. Okay, so we've got multi-scale. Here's another question for you, fantastic listeners. Multi-scale or fanned fret, which term do you use for preference? I'm really interested in this. I always say fan fret, but it appears that most people say multi-scale these days. Yeah, I think this is okay. Yeah, it would work as an instrument. You're gonna poke somebody's eye out with that tiny headstock, but that's it. Okay, now this. I love monochrome or duochrome guitars. I think that this is particularly stunning. We have a fretless guitar, and I made a fretless 5-string guitar, I think, once, a long time ago. Again, there's no evidence of this on YouTube or anywhere. I suppose the guitar still exists. Fretless guitar works very well. The gold binding on this works really, really well with that white. I like it a lot. I think this is an incredible render, and somebody needs to make this instrument. It's a very bass feeling design, you know, with the lack of frets and the horns being the shape that they are, but it is very pleasing. I think that with a good modern radius carve on the top could just be nice, and the headstock again is quite good. And then from that minimalist white and gold beauteous thing to a bubble guitar. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. This a slight scaling issue that but that just is what it is. I love how that big bubble at the neck pickup cuts out part of the fretboard. The fretboard's bound. You've got an inlay that works. It makes me smile. It makes me smile, and that's really cool. The control knobs appear to be bubbles, or eyes at least. It's sort of like Bumblefoot's guitar in that it serves no real purpose other than being what it is. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing now, is it? Okay, now again, we've got a headless multi-scale sort of a thing. Personally, I don't like multi-scale guitars that try and hide that they're multi-scale. It might not be multi-scale. It might just have no, it's multi-scale. Look at the pickups. The pickups are multi-scale. So I don't particularly like multi-scale guitars where the fretboard is square at the ends. I think, you know, if you're gonna do it, go the whole hog and just do it. The lower horn on this and the up, it needs to be compressed closer to the center line. But again, that's just to make it feel a bit more traditional to me, so I could be wrong. Okay, now this is interesting. This appears to have been designed based on a 50s car of some sort, although it also has bird-like characteristics. Is that a bird's beak up at the top? Maybe it's a bird. I don't know. Rewind. I like it. It's interesting. Again, it serves no purpose. There's no reason for it other than, hey, this looks interesting. And the design has to have a purpose and a reason for being. And that's sort of missing in this. Okay, now this is another. This looks almost like it was designed by the same person that designed the other one that I started out hating and then ended up really wanting to own. Now, a similar sort of thing. You've got an upper horn and a lower horn that thin out and then get bigger, multi-scale. It looks quite comfortable, and yeah. The inlays cut into the side in the orange and black. I like it. Another Fishman Fluence in there. Headstock's got a weird step near the bass tuner, but other than that, we're all good. Okay, onwards again, because we are trying to do 100 damn guitars, and this is taking a long time. So we've got a sort of Jackson V kind of a body as the main one. I love the idea of a removable V section that plops out and turns it into something that will actually stand up against a wall, although you shouldn't leave your guitar stood up against a wall. This is another one of those guitars where you sort of run the risk of stabbing yourself a little bit with the headstock, although nowhere near as egregiously as the earlier one we looked at. Now, I like the vine inlay. That looks really cool. We've got Stars of David's going around. There's a Christmas tree version. There's a version that looks like Bob, which I really do need to do a Bob-inspired Flying V. I enjoyed that guitar. This is, yeah, this is functional. I'm going to start speeding up now because I don't think I'm 100 guitars in. I don't think I'm even halfway in. And quite frankly, it's cold. Yeah. Okay. Now this is one of my favorite instruments of the entire series, apart from the headstock. I love this bass. I think it's incredible. It seems to have been inspired by Michiru Matsuda to a certain extent, or at the very least, Japanese art and architecture and construction. It's gorgeous. It's minimalistic in an utterly hedonistic and insane sort of a way. I love it. I love it. The pickup's at a weird angle. I hate it. Come on. Okay, now, next up, so Samira's Shark again. This is something that has to be made. If I can figure out, I think on reflection that what I would have to do is I would have to have a thin sort of 2mm bent rib, kind of like the side of an acoustic guitar or a violin, joining the disparate pieces. I think that that's essential. And I would need to change that lower horn that basically cuts off all access to the upper frets, and you need access. So one of the first design cues to look at in a guitar is, will it be easy to play? If it's not easy to play, then there's no point in it at all. You have to change it. And, you know, not everybody plays up at the dusty end, but everybody should have the opportunity to do so. The inlay is also pretty cool. Says the man with tribal tattoos on his head. It was a while ago now. Okay, Celtic carved top. I love this. I think this is really cool. The headstock's got a cool design going all the way around, sort of Celtic knotwork. It is obviously a fairly traditional Les Paul inspired instrument with a Aria Pro 2 headstock, maybe. But it would be cool. It would even be... People have asked me to do a leather-topped guitar in the past. That could look quite nice as a leather-topped instrument. Yeah, I like this. There's a lot of purfling inlay there. Check out vintage sort of 1600s viola da gambas and things like that for some cool purfling art. Go down that rabbit hole. Okay, we have, this looks very PV. Oh yeah, there we go, in the side. It's a cross between a Atelier Perez and a Wolfgang. I like the Wolfgang guitars, they're pretty cool. I like the cutaway. I like the way that this gentleman, I'm assuming, Steve, there we go, has done sort of circles into it to get the shapes right. You are cutting away a little bit of axis in the lower bout, but it's an attractive look. I think the upper bout is just a little bit too short. It needs to be further up. Traditionally, you want to meet at the 16th fret when you're designing a guitar. Look at all the headstocks. And in his notes on the left, he said, bloody hell, headstocks are difficult. Yeah, they really are, man. They are. I swear I've drawn half of those headstocks that you've got on that piece of paper myself. Interesting instrument. It looks relatively thin as well. I think that could be quite cool. 3 and 3. Yeah, not bad at all. Okay, this is a relatively traditional, albeit with a tiny Les Paul-ish scratch plate. I changed the scratch plate a little bit, make it a little bit longer, go up to meet the neck P90. An interesting set of inlays. I don't dislike that at all. I think it's sort of a Les Paul-ish lower horn, etc. Okay, now, this instrument has been stuck in my head since the competition. It's got a 2 and 4 headstock. The headstock and the upper horn match beautifully, albeit they are different shapes. It has a totally custom telly-style bridge that just makes me just makes me happy. And in the original video, this made my top 10, I think. In the original video, I remember saying that the offset shape is a little bit derivative. I take that back entirely, and I don't even know what I was thinking at the time. I take it back. It is an incredibly interesting looking shape, and it deserves to be put into worldwide production post haste. Yeah, that bridge is gorgeous. Yeah, okay. I really like that instrument. We appear to be in my top 10 for some reason. This is another one. I love it. It was designed as part of somebody's thesis. I'm not sure what they were studying, but it looked like it was fun. And we've got a headless instrument without a traditional headless system. You've got guitar tuning keys, standard ones, in the body, in a central section, so it's a multi-step construction. It was designed, I think, to be made out of perspex or plexiglass or something like that. And I love the look of it. Again, you might struggle to have access. The back of your hand, I think, would hit that section there that goes up to the headstock, so that would need changing a little bit, but it would work. The 2020 guitar. This is... So the guitar, the inlay is a guitar going around a red circle, going over the COVID-19 virus. Yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with 2020 ever again in my life, let alone build a 2020 inspired guitar. Flip. Bad headstock. All right, now this is another one. This is another guitar that should be built. I love, and it made my top 10, I love how the upper horn and lower horn, upper bout, lower bout, I love how they just 90 degrees slam, you're there, and then everything else is super curvy. The headstock is a bit, I want to say frameless, but I think I'm probably wrong. I love the block inlays, the Bigsby P90s. Oh, that in sort of Pelham blue or something. Oh, all right. Now this is another one. Actually, this is incredibly gorgeous. It's got really nice curves. I think the curve where your elbow is up there is a trifle tight, but I'm nitpicking now. I love the lower horn. I think that's really cool. It is gonna hurt somebody at some point. You need to soften those edges just a fraction. But the shape is really attractive. Everybody knows I have a weakness for single cut instruments. Now, the one thing that I would say is the headstock, the end of the headstock shape needs to be brought in line with the shape of the lower horn there. You have to have, it needs to be brought together, basically. When you've got design elements that are similar across various different parts of the guitar, the whole thing feels a lot more homogeneous, and that is really important. Whoa, alrighty. I haven't talked this much in a long time. Okay, this is quite nice. As an outline, I think the lower horn is a little problematic. And you don't have to have such a large surface area on the back of a neck. Even if you're gluing the neck in, you don't need to have a huge gluing surface. Modern glues are very, very good. Don't use epoxy, use proper wood glues. Epoxy forms a layer between the wood, and then with a sharp knock, that layer will shear off and the whole neck will just fall off. Whereas modern wood glues, and wood glues in general, tend to soak into the wood, and it's the wood pulling itself together rather than something grabbing on both sides for sheer life. That was weird. Please forgive me. Okay, this is going on far too long. We have got a violin-inspired instrument to a certain extent. We've built something very similar at Crimson in the past. It has an Evertune bridge. I have not installed an Evertune bridge before. I really should. Really, really should. I have an 8-string one somewhere around, and yeah, I should. There's not. This is an existing idea that's been done by multiple people. Now, this hasn't been done by anybody. This is based on my questionable life choices. That's, yeah, okay. No, thank you. No. Okay, that's one. Now, okay, so what we've got here, this is called From the Ruins. Sort of a lyre-inspired. Yeah, it's shaped like a lyre. The very, very interesting bit about this, go and check out a Peter Brown video where Lava Bowl. I think he did one called Lava Bowl and one Son of Lava Bowl. Anyway, he's a wood turner, and he was playing with different resin, and he poured a dye into this resin, and it just went and made this incredible thing, and he turned it, and it was amazing. And that is what this central section is supposed to look like. That and the shape of that central section, sort of a majesty sort of a feel going on. I really like it. Yeah, that's an interesting instrument. Okay. This is taking much longer than I thought it would. All right, now this design is very, very interesting. We've got an acoustic-y kind of a thing with an acoustic bridge, therefore pretty acoustic. I love the open headstock, slotted headstock design. I really do. The way that B&G guitars have popularized that again makes me very happy. It really does. They've done a very, very, very good marketing job. I'm not sure about the sort of rope around the sound hole, and the placement of the sound hole is unfortunately wrong structurally. Obviously, we've got a single coil or a Teddy style pickup in the neck position there. There's nothing really wrong with it. It needs tweaking for sure, but I think that this could be quite interesting. The swirly pattern, etc. Spirograph guitar, that could be fun. Yeah, interesting. Cat's eye inlays as well. Okay, so moving on, we have got another. This sort of looks like McCartney's bass to a certain extent. The wood grain is going the wrong way, and it's wrong, and it's nasty, and it's naughty, and but with that being said, now this central sound hole kind of a thing with a pickup on it, I'm wondering if that could be rotated to adjust the actual position of the pickup with relation to the strings on the fly, as it were. That could be quite interesting, actually. So I'm not a huge fan of the shape. It is a fan fret instrument, and again, we've got the squared off ends to the fretboard, which I don't particularly like. But and it's got a modern radius carve shape to it, which is really cool, or carve at least. It's an interesting instrument. Okay, now the next one up is a fairly standard, Floyd Rose humbucker equipped super strat style guitar. It's built in the timbers as described, with purple heart and maple and walnut, etc., with an ebony fretboard. It would be very attractive, much like many other guitars though, so not too much to talk about here. Next up is a Dragon guitar. this is much like the octopus sort of thing. There's no real point to have it other than the fact that, hey, this would be really cool to carve and shape and, you know, inlay some cool mother of pearl for the eyes or whatever. I don't. Yeah, it's the sort of thing that Duresta would have made in the sort of 90s when he was just carving away guitars and the like. It's cool. It's an interesting idea. It's very well drawn and attractively designed, but nothing majorly interesting from a guitar design point of view. Now, next up, we've got another very attractive headless multi-scale design going here, and I like the way out of this was one of my favorite headless designs that came through this competition. The pickups are positioned correctly. It looks like that's actually a photograph of a slotted fretboard in reality that they maybe already have. I like the upper bout, the upper horn. I like the shaping. It could maybe be a little bit longer to reduce neck dive, but then again, you know, the mass of the body should do just that. I love how headless instruments have proliferated now. This, Tobias Radmer, this was one of my favorite instruments in the entire competition. I'm losing my voice now, please forgive me. The rendering was great, but the actual design itself is sublime. There's no controls that I can see. The back with the Wenge swoops down and through. You've got a hidden control cavity in the same style as our Descendants, a multi-scale through neck, multi-laminate through neck, crimson-ish headstock. I think it's 7-string or 8-string. It's gorgeous, and the inlay and the use of two materials on the fretboard, it just makes me happy. I think this is an instrument that needs to be made again and again and again. Now, moving forward, we have, I'd forgotten about this one. These are Loki's children, the world serpent and Fenrir, the wolf, with a warhammer in there as well. The 8-legged horse inlaid into the fretboard. All I can say to that design is, yeah, it can be done. I think a lot of people have been inspired by Odin, the entry into last year's Great Guitar Build-Off, and that isn't a problem to me. Now, next up, we have another violin-inspired instrument, this based on the horns, at least, from a PRS. The headstock's a little bit thin and elongated, but again, that could just as well be how the image was manipulated to get it on your screens. This is the problem with digital. I like the chamfers. So it looks like you've got the shape and then you've got a 45-degree chamfer around the edge or something. And yeah, it works. It's a very, very interesting design, and I've got no problem with it. Yes, there we go. Okay, this one needs a little bit of finessing. The headstock is fairly standard. It is what it is. The shape it's just a little bit it's a little bit sort of sucked lozengey, amorphous. The problem is that we don't have the pickups and the hardware to locate ourselves and the scale lengths and all of that jazz. Designing guitars is not easy if you don't start with a plan, basically. Now, speaking of that, this one looks like a full-scale plan drawn to scale, and this is a really interesting instrument. It's a similar in concept to our copper-rodded Descendant, where we take a piece of yew or something that's been naturally split, and then we rejoin those woods with an empty canyon between the two and steel rods. I don't know why we called it the copper-rodded, because we copper-leafed. Shush. This one has got aluminium rectangular bars holding on the external, and they call them outriggers. It's like a trimarang kind of a thing, or a catamaran. Anyway, I really like it. I think it's cool. I can't quite make out the upper and lower horn shapes and all that jazz, but the concept makes me very, very happy. Okay, next up we've got another Superstrat kind of a thing. The lower horn does not look structurally sound to me. I think that's a little bit too thin and also a little bit too pointy. It's close. It's close. Just a little bit more tweaking. Those are the sort of things that you make a prototype and you realize, and then you adjust it and you adjust it, and you end up with an Ibanez, really. Okay, next we have the Les Bowie. There was a retro kind of a thing going on for a long time, and this is firmly in that. The inlays are cool. The shape is very. It looks like it should be made out of some sort of a plastic veneer of some sort, and it's cool. The scratch plate, the tailpiece, the headstock is great. It's of a period, and it does that period very, very well, and I love it. Okay, now this next instrument here, we've got sort of a combination of an axe and an acoustic guitar, and complete and total access all the way to the 40th fret. I don't like it. And I don't really know why. It's as an acoustic, it would make it just wouldn't work. You've taken away all of the vibrating surfaces, and there's just nowhere that it would sound acoustically. Anything with more than 24 frets is pointless. You can't get your fingers in there for the most part. Well, let's say 30 frets. Anything with more than 30 frets is literally pointless. You can't do it. Fight me in the comments. I'd love to hear a cogent argument that changes my mind. The biggest mistake I've ever made as a parent was telling my children that I am not infallible. I am wrong a lot of the time, and that if they can convince me through intelligent argument that I'm wrong, I will change my mind and I will let them stay up till midnight. The problem is that now they spend a lot of time convincing me, and it ends up being midnight, and they get what they want. Anyway, so this is where the hell did that come from? I'm gonna have to rewind it and see why I said that. Yeah, convince me otherwise. And as an electric guitar, there's no point, because I've already negated the point of having that many frets. And then if you're building an electric guitar, you wouldn't have an acoustic guitar bridge on it. It's there, and if it was an acoustic guitar, the bridge is in the wrong place. It's far too close to the rear end of the guitar. Again, you don't have a vibrating top to drive the noise. And that is, in the end, the whole point of the acoustic, is driving sound. Okay, this is an instrument that tells me I needed really to see the front-on version. It looks quite interesting. I think it's the upper bout where your elbow is further back than the bottom corner where the controls normally would be, and I think that's a shape that is very, very difficult to pull off. I really struggle with 3D surfaces, and yeah, I've got nothing but respect for anybody that can draw anything in that sort of a format. I'm trying to move on a little bit more quickly now, because we're, well, going long, shall we say. Okay, so this is Whitney Electroacoustic from Cal Style. This is, I like the mountain silhouette sound holes. The upper curve needs a little bit of fixing, in my opinion, but we've got an acoustic style instrument. This almost looks like sort of Yamaha APX kind of a size, actually. So bigger. I mean, looking at the size of that bridge, for example, it's a bit slightly bigger instrument, maybe. Yeah, it's functional. You've got a single cord at the neck. You've got a piezo underneath the acoustic bridge. Yeah, it's a concept that seems to, yeah, it works. The headstock is problematic. Again, you've got nowhere near straight string pull on that, and I am no longer of the opinion that straight string pull is the be all and end all. It is nice to get it pretty close, though. If you've got strings going off at that kind of an angle, which you do on this, you will have tuning issues. It's a given, unfortunately. An easy fix, though. Now, here is another electroacoustic kind of jobby with sound holes akin to what I did on the original Cyberpunk guitar. I like the scratch plate. I haven't built a scratch plate instrument for years, but I like that scratch plate. I like the inlay. It's a nice instrument. You could maybe offset the rear a little bit, but it's cool. Oh, and here's a render with LEDs, and that's a glow-in-the-dark inlay. Glow-in-the-dark inlays, I love them when they're glowing. And a lot of the time they just look very amorphous and boring when they're not. In the future, if we ever do it, I would like to create a metallic surround so the shape is what it is, and very defined and pretty, then filled with the glow-in-the-dark material. So even when it's not lit, you've got something that is defined and pretty and attractive, rather than just a sort of off-white kind of a resin-filled hole. But anyway, that's just me. I like this instrument. There would be a few tweaks I'd make. The headstock's nice, but yeah, it works very well for me. And here's another. This is headless with, again, 6-sided holes, but in a more triangular shape. And again, this could work very well. It was drawn freehand without, so it's off scale, obviously. But you know, we're not. It's attractive. I do like those shapes in the sound holes. And yet another cyberpunk-ish, modern, computery. Yeah. I mean, we all know what it's based on. But that's not an issue. That's what my issue is. I'm just wondering if I've ever seen an Explorer or a Firebird or anything of this sort of a heavy metal kind of a thing with a trapeze tailpiece. And I think V's used to have trapezes, didn't they? And some Ibanez guitars of this ilk. The Iceman had a trapeze. Let me know. Let me know. I think that's. We're getting there. All right, next up, this is another axe, lol, kind of a guitar. I think that's pretty cool. This is a perfect example of somebody who's taken a set of plans and then put another piece of paper over the top and used the plans underneath to figure out what they were doing. Well, we sell, in fact, that is a Crimson Guitars plan. So there we go. If you want to check out crimsonguitars.com. This is another octopus. There's no real reason to do it this way other than to look cool. But if looking cool was not a good enough reason to do anything, then a lot of us would be rather bored, wouldn't we? So yeah, I think it's interesting. And yeah, playable, as long as you don't make it too sharp. The Triquetra. I love this. I think the headstock is very cool. We've got a Parker style look to it, but the strength of a standard headstock. The only thing about this instrument that doesn't really jibe with me is the curve of the top. I think that needs a little bit more playing to make it a bit more attractive. It's just a little bit flat, the black line going along. I really, really, really like the upper and lower horns. I find those incredibly attractive. And the way that they match the headstock is done very well. I like it, and of course the inlay, the Celtic knot kind of thing, is going well. Goddess Guitars, they did a very interesting entry into the Great Guitar Build-Off, particularly sparkly last time. I like the scratch plate, inlaid scratch plate in Wenge. Nobody wants to work in Wenge. It's attractive as all hell, but my gosh. Don't cry. My planes just hate Wenge. It's all right, sweetheart. I like this. Offset, the upper horns, etc. could be, the upper horn could be adjusted a little bit, but I like the overall shapes that we're going for. Again, you don't have to have that kink going through to make the neck pocket bigger. It looks large enough as it is. It doesn't have to be quite so... yeah, I've said this before. I like these inlays. So a mother of pearl, sort of waxing and waning moon, up and down the fretboard. Yeah. If nothing else, that's going to be stuck in my head. All right, next up we have got a very... I think this is a soprano, a 5-string soprano guitar. I don't have the descriptions in front of me, and it was a number of weeks ago that I judged the competition. I can't remember everything, but yeah, it's attractive. Again, you don't need all of that space underneath the neck. I would go for something that is a little bit less of a wiggly line and more ergonomic and organic. I suppose organic is wiggly lines, isn't it? Anyway, okay. White lines on a black background. Perfect way to start a movie. This guitar is that rare beast, symmetrical and good looking. Is it entirely symmetrical or not? I don't think so. So the horns are not. And that's why it's good looking, because symmetrical horns never look right. It's weird. Symmetrical horns, like on an SG, etc., never... If you were to draw an SG from your memory and flipped it and made one that you thought would be right, it would be symmetrical, but it actually shouldn't be. Anyway, yeah, this is an interesting guitar. I like it. Twin humbuckers, etc. It's cool. El Cuchillo. Okay, so this is interesting. We did an instrument called the PAF Hollow Mini a number of years ago now, and that had the same sort of, okay, blues hawk. Big bottom, tiny waist, and it's... Google the blues hawk. That's the same sort of a feel that I'm getting here. I like the way it cuts in. I like where the sound holes are. It needs to be drawn to scale and tidied up a little bit, but this is a conceivable instrument. It's built... It looks like it's built as a proper acoustic, actually, and is a little bit deeper. It's an interesting instrument, and yeah, I'd like to see that brought to life. Now we've got another beastie here with a very attractive lower horn that I think pushes out too close to the headstock. I think that... No, here's what the issue is. The up about isn't far enough up or big enough, and the area behind the bridge is much, much bigger than it needs to be. For example, when I built a guitar when Cremona and April Wilkerson were down, I wanted to use as much wood as humanly possible because this material I had was gorgeous. And it's just massive behind the bridge, and it's not particularly comfortable to play, and it's very heavy. And this would be in that ilk. But that lower horn is gorgeous. And I think with a little bit of work and maybe a reference guitar plan or template, that could be a very, very nice guitar. This one now, this is another one of those instruments that I loved and hated and loved, and I'm still on a journey with it. I think that it's a little bit narrow. I love the bottom half. It's either a little bit narrow or a little bit long. That upper bout just doesn't quite do it for me. The upper sort of horn area. I don't know. Nice headstock. Very nice headstock. Scratch plate's great. All right, onwards, onwards. Oh, one of my favorite guitars in the entire competition, and it's not a guitar, it's a bass. I said a lot in the main video announcement. If you haven't watched that, please go back. I go into quite some depth, into quite some detail. I love this. It's sort of a Japanese-inspired kind of a thing. Again, Michiru Matsuda-ish. Maybe I could see him doing this, but it's headless. It's got the square inlays, which I love. This was designed by a gentleman who is a professional designer. It's what he does, and it shows. If I didn't have so much going on in my life, I would be very interested in actually taking a qualification in industrial design or design. I think that would be incredibly interesting. Anyway, swiftly moving onwards, we've got an Incan guitar, Aztec, I suppose, maybe. The outline isn't great. What's going on in the outline is fantastic. It obviously makes me think a little bit of Minecraft and a pixelated kind of a thing. I wouldn't particularly want to build it. There's a lot of detailed work going on there, a lot of Dremel and back-breaking inlays, but I think that could be quite cool. Is it really nearly 5 o'clock? My gosh, people. Wow. Okay. This is a more traditional type instrument, lots of facets and carves and comfort bits going on. That little cutaway down near the rear jack serves no purpose other than, I suppose, weight relief. And the horns need a little bit of work, but it's a fan fret. Yeah, this to me looks like a first draft, and then you draw it out full scale and iron out some kinks and then make a template and then iron out some kinks, and you end up with a really pretty guitar in the end, I'm sure. Ardrey guitars, 7-string with several pointy bits with which to murder. Yeah. So this whole guitar is going the wrong way, and in this particular case, it works very well. We've got a sort of a pointier version of, if you squint, Explorer-ish kind of stuff going on. I wonder if Ernie Ball have got a 5-2 headstock patent. I don't know. This is the sort of thing that I would have done when I was younger and would have loved. And yeah, multi-scale through neck, multi-laminate neck, some interesting shapes and curves. I think it's a little bit too sharp. If you can actually murderize somebody with your guitar by mistake, maybe put a bevel on the pointy bits. Okay, now this is a guitar designed by Laura, the lady who won the Great Guitar Build-Off last year. I don't particularly like the design. I haven't watched her video. She did a video talking about this, and I'm now feeling like I really should have watched that. I absolutely love the fish inlay. In fact, I really want to do that. Really want to do that. Have you ever seen those videos where people build up layers of paint inside resin and you get a 3D structure inside of the bottom of a bowl or something? Can you imagine that as a fretboard? Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, so this is another one of those things where you've got where the image is shaping the design of the guitar, and it's art rather than building a guitar for a purpose. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's just not what we were really after. Yeah. Now, Laura won an entry into the Great Guitar Build-Off Invitational competition, which is coming this year now, and I'm very, very much looking forward to what she does. Okay, now, whoa, can you say neck dive? Because I think this is going to dive. Necks are pretty heavy on their own, and there's not enough body wood there to create enough mass, I would suggest, to have a guitar that doesn't just go. The strap button would have to be on the back of the neck. It's not long enough. I would move the up about much further along if you want to have a small body like this. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just tinsy tiny problematic. Multi-scale. I like the truss rod access, and I like the sort of cyberpunk-esque binding around the fretboard. I think that could work very, very cool. And yeah, seems carved as well. Yeah, interesting. Like I said, a lot of headless guitars and a lot of multi-scale guitars in this competition. I feel like I've seen this one before. If I haven't seen this one before in this video, then there's two people who've designed almost exactly the same upper horn and lower horn combination. I haven't seen that hole in the headstock. Holy headstocks can be done very, very well, and it works, and it's great. Yeah. No comment. I think, is that tulip wood? That's a tulip wood fretboard, I think. Pink ivory? I don't know. Oh, okay. Now, this is actually one of my favorite of the whole competition. Again, so he's used my design for the back plates where they go off the edge of the guitar, which I love. I say my design. I know I stole it from somebody else. Or at least I'd remembered seeing it on somebody else's guitars, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. But at this point, it's mine. I've probably got a bigger YouTube channel than they do. That sounds naughty, doesn't it? Anyway, I love the fact that there's that sort of homage. It looks like an updated version of our Descendant. That lower horn looks incredible. The carve looks great. The curves are all in the right places. This is another guitar where somebody's gone and drawn a massive kink going out of the line to glue the neck onto, and that isn't necessary. All that really does is up where the neck meets the upper bout, you've got a very hard to sand part of the instrument. Now, the 6-in-line headstock that he's designed, I'm afraid I'm just going to assume it's a boy because there's too many bloody men building guitars and not enough women, to be frank. I love the 6-in-line headstock. I think that is sublime. I really like this instrument. Oh, yes. Okay, now this is somebody who thought that I would be tempted to build another 90-hour style instrument and then give it away. No. Far too many hours. Although, if I do it again, and I'm sure I will, I will never sand the carved section. It would be textured. Hell, I might even shot blast the damn thing, because that's what took most of the time, was the fine finishing. The carving is relatively quick and straightforward. So to have a textured organic form. Now, initially you look at this and you see the complication 90-hour sort of organic webbing eating the guitar kind of thing. But if you look behind that, this fractal, I don't think fractal's the right word, sliced, diced, chopped, the guitar underneath is incredibly cool. It is incredibly cool. You can see it, can't you? I like that. I like that a lot. This is another one where, so you remember earlier I said that the top, where it was carved away, the line wasn't quite right. I like the body shape. I would adjust the lower horn a little bit, but I really like the fact that we've got something that looks like a traditional double cutaway guitar built into something that's fairly close to a single cutaway guitar. There's a little bit of finessing to do, sure, but I like it. The headstock also works really well for me. I think this has potential. Multi-scale, it's got the cool sort of inlays. The whole thing works very well. Now, this is one of my favorites as well. So this is a guitar. It's a traditional shape, but it's based on Japanese joinery. Both the kumiko method, which is sort of slats of tiny pieces of wood put together inside of a lattice, which you can't actually, oh no, you can see. So yeah, you've got the square lattice, and then you slot in pieces of wood with various sized miters, etc., to make stars and patterns and bursts and the like. And I've always wondered how I would do that. And the other thing I've always wondered about is how to make a Japanese-inspired neck joint. And this one works very well. Essentially, you slide the two shapes together, and then that little square in the center, you plop in a wedge, and that pushes the two pieces apart into the opposing wood. And yeah. It works. I like it. I think it should be done. Okay, so we've got a reverse bass, not enough access for your hand on the upper frets, unless that is a left-handed instrument, which it is not. No, it is not. Custom Sims bass pickups. I've never played with one of Martin's pickups. Moon grey stain, cream binding. Yeah, I think that drawn to scale is quite interesting. Yeah, again, you need to think about the ergonomics of the instrument. Okay, now this one looks like a drop of water, fire water. Fire water. Okay, I don't like the upper horn. I like the concept of the 2 or 3 different things. The lower half of the instrument feels quite nice. We've got Fishman pickups again. It's not really my thing. The headstock has very little relation apart from the central thing. This is a difficult one for me. And I think one of the things I've got an issue with is there's too many colors. I tend to think that if you're designing an instrument, you should have no more than 3 or 4 different things going on. You've got your neck, color, which if possible should match the top. Having 3 different or 4 different colors in view at any one time is a little bit too much. If the lower royal blue section was the same color as the turquoisey, I think that it would look a lot better. and that upper shape bout needs to be fixed a little bit. This is another guitar that I love. That inlay is very, very cool. And you've got a sort of a heavy metal kind of looking rear end. I think that's also Evertune. Yeah, Evertune bridge. But it's also then got a more Les Paul-y inspired upper bout. And I like that. I like it a lot. It was also drawn and painted very, very well. I don't think that's a render. Yeah. It might be a render, I don't know. I'm tired at this point. Okay, natural outlook. I was tempted to put this guitar in my top 10 actually. It's pleasantly offset, and you can see the drawing process. They've got the lines going through at the same angle, so you can see that. The one thing is you want to have your angle either the same, or if this is where the upper bout is, moving forward. If you've got that angle going backwards, it feels restrained and a bit weird. But I like this. It's very attractive. The shape itself is okay. The upper horn needs a little bit more defining, I would say. But it works very well. You've got a leaf sound hole. It says Merry Christmas to Ben & Co. Thank you very much. It was. As the nebula was to the stars, this will be to the earth. Me. I like it. And yeah, whoever did this uses an Opinel penknife to sharpen their pencil and is a particularly good sketch artist. Why does it say sorry, Ben? Oh, because it's a... that's not a difficult inlay. That's an amazing inlay. No, I really, really like that. I think that would be great fun to do. Okay, on to this 12-string guitar. That headstock is an atrocity. You will never, ever, 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 anybody listening to me that builds a guitar where you have to actually have a physical bendy point in your strings to get them to the tuners, I will excommunicate you forthwith. That being said, I understand the concept. You need better access at the lower bout for sure. But this is a very rough sketch and an interesting beginning for sure. I hate to love and love to hate this guitar. It's I hate to love and love to hate. No, the other way around. I love. Do you know what? Forget all of that. This, I'm pretty sure I said this in the previous video, but this guitar is falling backwards on itself. Most guitars, in my opinion, and in many others, should have forward momentum moving towards the neck, so it gets smaller towards the neck, and everything's got that. And this is the other way around. The back's going way. Okay, no, whoa there, buddy. And I bloody love it. I love it. I think this is incredible. The upper bout is very weird shape. The lower horn is verging. It's verging on the sort of yeah. I don't like the headstock, and we'll leave it at that. I think this guitar is great. Okay, now this is many shades of not my thing. So you've got a multi-laminate through neck going partway through the body, and then it's hidden behind the top from the bridge back, and then you can see the end grain at the back of the body. The shape is just, yeah, this is the sort of thing where you need to draw starting with a plan. And then you've got an axe head headless system, but no access to the headless tuning bits at the back. Needs work. Sorry. See me after class, children. I like this headstock. This is another one where you've got a point going back to where your hand would be if you go too far up, and you could injure yourself, so just bear that in mind. But this is a very organic sort of sea creature kind of an effect, and I really like it. I personally think that there's not enough access to the lower frets there. You're gonna have an issue getting above the 20th or so. But well, it looks like it's an instrument that somebody's built already, actually, and I think that it's a lovely thing. Absolutely. Oh, I love this. I absolutely love this. The only thing that I would change about this instrument, the headstock shape, again, sort of a little bit not quite, and I would change the white control knobs to black, so they sort of disappear into that eye socket. I love this. I think it's super cool. Did I just betray how uncool I am by saying the words super cool like that? I did. Flying V variant, it's pretty cool. I'm going to assume that's a sound hole. I like the access. I like the bottle opener kind of thing going on. I think that's pretty awesome. I'm wondering if that's somebody outside my workshop. It's getting late. It's after 5 o'clock. This is a problem. Okay, so we've got another cyberpunk inspired guitar. I love those control knobs. Those are awesome. I love the facets and the angles and the hard lines. Facets like that can be incredibly comfortable. Yeah, other than that, obviously it's sort of telly inspired, but well, telly or Descendant inspired. It's sort of offset. I can't quite tell from this angle of this photo, but I really like that instrument. This is, again, I'm pretty sure from an earlier instrument, if not similar to it's similar to, the back is a little bit different. Yeah, I like that sort of 90-degree at the 16th fret. I think that's quite cool. Modern radius carve, etc. Definitely has potential. Entropy. Okay. This is horrifically tempting. You saw me slowly lose my mind when I was building the 90-hour build. I'm so tempted to do something like this. It is, instead of an alien creature landing on the guitar and sort of eating it away, this is the guitar eating itself. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, this is another concept, actually, that is very cool. So, what does it say? Neck timber becomes the timber you touch, i.e. the neck, the knee rest, the arm rest, etc. Again, it's like two organisms living together in one sonically motivated individual. I really like it. Hashtag Crimson Christmas. This is another, I'm not particularly looking at the shape, although the giant golden feather on the back could be fun. This is called Out of the Ashes, and I have often wondered if I would be able to, with the help of a good airbrush artist perhaps, this has got a line of lava or magma, going down the center of it, and I think resin, airbrush art, and an LED in the bottom, I think that could look just stunning on stage. Imagine it. This is an incredible sort of update of an SG kind of thing. I love the carves. I love the facets going around the edge. I think the upper horn needs a little bit of work and the headstock needs a little bit of work, but the concept of this is fantastic. And you've got that sort of Tron-like light effect from behind the pickups and control rings, control knobs. I like it. And that was my last guitar. I've talked about, I'm going to assume 100 guitars because that's what I asked for. Holy poop. That was a lot of talking and a lot of listening and I am going to be looking at the analytics to see just how many of you made it to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Click like, even if you hated it. Subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you loved, what you hated, what you want to see somebody build. And do not forget that you are awesome. I will see you soon. My workshop is done. I am going to start building things again tomorrow. See you guys soon. Goodbye. All right. Do you think it'd be weird if I called somebody from the house to come and help me get off the stool? Because my butt is sore. Holy crap. That is not the most comfortable of perches for this length of time in this cold. I'm getting old. It's the big 4-0 this year. Oh my gosh. Goodbye, people.